we are back. We are just starting to figure out a name for this show or this segment. I am Courtney. This is Ricardo Zavart. Am I pronouncing that right?
Zavart. You said it right. You got it. You got it.
And you can find, obviously my channel is Willows Bloom. And then
and I've just launched a new YouTube channel with a new name called The Infinite Soul, SOL for soul. Ricardo Zavart Astrologer, and you can find me on YouTube and Instagram and in the link below.
I also just rebranded my podcast and I named it Astrology is Real. I don't know why. I just couldn't get that out of my head. So if you want to listen to these things on a podcast version on iTunes, Spotify, you can check those episodes out there. Today is a really exciting episode.
Oh, yeah.
And this is in honor of Valentine's Day, as well as the Mars and Venus conjunction that we just had on 2/16.
I could also say Mars full moon in Leo kind of open up the heart centers and stuff like that. But yeah.
So if you haven't gathered, it is an episode around love and relationships. And we're specifically centering this around Venus in our chart. So today we're going to be talking about what Venus is as a planet, why we should be studying it at all, and what it means for men and for women, because it differs a little bit. And we'll also break it down in terms of the signs and maybe the houses. I'm not sure.
I don't know about so much of the houses, but definitely talking about just like when Venus is in a sign, an element, and if it's for a man or woman, I think it gives a lot of context and value to anyone connecting with themselves, friends, or lovers,
And if we have some time, we're going to end with some really fun or important examples that we definitely see come up in our clients' charts a lot, and possibly even celebrity charts. So let's go ahead and dive in. Is there anything you want to add to that actually before we do that?
Definitely just dropping into Venus, what it represents, how this video could help you is looking at your own personal Venus and how we outreach our hand in connection with people. And so Venus, we can drop into the whole show, but it's really about like how we connect not only to one another, but also how do we harmonize and feel the sensuality and the beauty that wants to correlate within relationships in itself. So it's wonderful. You got a Sag and Gemini, me and Courtney, out here to just kind of start the first little launch pad of us doing a whole kind of show interview and kind of bring some details to create more of a harmonious world. So that's my little 2 cents.
All right. So let's start off by talking about what is Venus. Well, Venus is obviously a planet,
Right.
like everything we talk about
Venus,
in astrology.
Not everything,
but primarily our focus. And I mean, it has a lot of meanings. Today, we will be primarily focusing on the love aspect of Venus, the way we harmonize with other people or attract other people. Venus has a lot to do with physical beauty, material beauty in the world around us, as well as our beauty. And of course, money. That's a really big one.
Too.
So what other kind of Venus significations do you see come up in people's charts, Ricky?
Just a lot of things like you said, but Venus is also not only just how you harmonize with social groups, how you make money. It's also like what makes you feel good just in the 5 senses, and even just in your own comfortability. If Venus is just not getting taken care of, you can feel a little lifeless. So I feel like Venus is a great way to kind of spark not necessarily just enthusiasm, but also just feeling at home with yourself, just like connecting with your own personal flower. And that goes even for men or women, but just your own, really the feminine energy that lies within all of us that wants to kind of be a little chaotic, crazy, and express itself and connect with the world.
I love that you use the word flower, because I will pop up a picture on the screen of what Venus's orbit looks like, and it actually makes this really beautiful flower in the sky. And so I think that this is just a perfect example of the kind of beauty that Venus can bring into our lives, as well as like the artistic nature of Venus. You can see this really predominantly in people's charts that are maybe jewelry designers or interior designers, or people who are just really interested in like the aesthetic of their environment. So
if I may, I think it is Beyonce that she might be a Virgo, but she has the most aspected Venus full blown in her chart. So you want to see some active feminine energy, like she is embodying that.
I think it's on her ascendant as well.
It's on the descendant or the ascendant, I believe. I believe it's the descendant. I think that in Libra. And another thing I'd like to share actually about Venus on a scientific and an ancient level is that the Mayans knew that Venus is the best calculator to copy. It is one of the great benefics. It's not the great benefic like Jupiter, but it is a benefic where it's the shining brightest light in the sky. So Venus, wherever it lies, if it's in a retrograde in the morning or the evening, also can entail where kind of the great benevolent parts of your day can be. So that gets a little bit nitty gritty, but it's definitely going to shine on like where the times the relationships are most active, actually. Is it in the morning or at night? And also, like, I think to get back to what the Mayans were looking at, every 8 years they can calculate it was the most accurate planet that could be looked at. So with that, maybe you showed a little pie chart of that, but like there's a lot of significations of how Venus can go in your chart. Definitely noteworthy for everyone in their aspects of all relationships. So
I actually do have Beyonce's chart on here,
Boom.
and she's a Libra rising. Her Venus is exactly on her ascendant.
Okay, cool.
Selena Gomez as well. Her Venus is on her ascendant. And what do people
Libra.
say about these people?
Boom.
They're very likable. People tend to really gravitate towards Selena Gomez and Beyonce. And the ascendant is a lot about how the world perceives you. And so with Venus on there, the planet of harmony, you tend to going to have a lot of friends. People are going to think you're attractive, or at the very least kind and amiable. So it's going to just create like a really lucky person in terms of their relationships. Not always going to be the case, but in general, people are going to be much more attracted to someone with Venus on their sun, Venus on their ascendant, or in a really predominant part of their chart.
There's many aspects Venus can show up. And I will say I've known a couple people with the ascendant, even if it's not, especially for females, and especially Beyonce with the Libra situation, that's super flower Venetian kind of. I would imagine like just speaking with them is going to have like an elegance and a soft petal-like tone kind of with their own vibe. I've met a man though, like, masculine energy with Venus on the ascendant, definitely the ability to connect with almost anyone, and just happened to be in Gemini. And I'm talking about one of the most articulate connecting people that I don't know a human they might not be able to connect with. So Venus really wants to kind of like harmonize with the world, so to speak. And so just to bring that back.
Yeah. And we'll see that also with positive aspects with Jupiter, or, I mean, I guess it just depends on where it is in your chart in general. With the moon, there's quite a few things that could make someone really social, that people enjoy them.
Even Uranus, Uranus and Venus trine is epic too. Like these people know how to network, make friends, electrify a group at a party, and bring in people and resources and jobs that no one knew how to do. And if you're looking for someone, Venus is that's why it's a benefic planet. So.
Yeah, so let's actually break down what is benefic when we're saying that.
I like that. Yeah, I really appreciate that. So benefic, when we use this term in astrology, benefic is really about like it's positive. It's embracing. Benefic is actually, you could use the words lucky, but it's a more positive, harmonious tone that's bringing more energies of that planet in a more positive place, where then it would be kind of malefic, whereas the opposite is usually a little bit more harsher, constructively, like for your personal growth. It's not soft, it's not fun. Benefic would be easy, playful, and fun, so to speak. Malefic could be like harsher, dirty work to kind of get done in abbreviated.
Yeah. So Saturn and Mars are the malefics that create that level of challenge, adversity, and discord between people and in our lives. And then Venus and Jupiter create opportunities, harmony, growth, romance, things that we typically enjoy. So if you want to look for the blessings in your chart, I always tell people to absolutely look for their Venus and Jupiter. It's not always going to be the case that they're only giving blessings, but generally that's where you're going to have things come to you in your life with greater ease, and it brings you greater sense of happiness.
Also to note, like, a lot of other malefics could be like, Pluto. Some people argue, I think Neptune can be a huge malefic too, and even the sun in some places. But what I like to say is that when these come together, it's a basic form. If you were looking on a daily chart, benefic would be like, oh, this is really positive. It's easy to go to a good party. It's easy to make good friends. Conversations with a lover might go very well if it was benefic, so to speak. And then malefic is kind of like, actually, we're having some really big transformative conversations. We're having some really big career pivots. We have big decisions or maybe trauma to deal with, So malefics, the thing is though, Venus, when it works with any of these, even malefics, I find is always leaving a jewel to whatever is being brought up. So even with Saturn, I've had a relationship with Saturn and Venus trine, super malefic, super benefic, if you will. They're now creating a structure for each other. So there's something always beautiful to be created with Venus, in my personal opinion, unless it has a really aggressive aspect. And this is not the energetics of the planet. This might be like a square opposition, a deeper kind of chemical reaction that can make Venus have a difficult time. The princess doesn't really get to go frolic free in the field. She's kind of in a tower with a dragon awaiting situations.
Yeah, I have a really close friend that I love so much, and she has an exact opposition with Saturn across from her Venus. And Saturn is a planet that restricts, and whenever it's in contact with Venus by transit or natally, we tend to feel like the love and support that we need from people in our lives is absent. So, for example, I went through Saturn squaring my Venus at a time in my life when I just moved somewhere new. I got super sick, was completely alone. I had zero support system. I had the thought if I died in my apartment, no one would find me for days. No one would even know because I just didn't know anyone there. And that's that kind of feeling that when you have that natally, the opposition or the square with Saturn and Venus, you can feel like love is really restricted. You can feel like it's hard to meet people that are really giving and that you can trust and that you can just really develop relationships with. So it's really important. I want to kind of segue into why should we look at Venus? And I think that is such a good example of why, because you can kind of see how maybe some reasons why you struggle with certain things in relationships and maybe where there needs to be some healing. So why else do you think we should look at Venus?
I think looking at Venus is huge importance. Like, basically, and it does depend. We're going to get into this, but kind of like from male to female, it does matter very differently on how Venus affects someone's chart. But, you know, especially for me, where Venus is where you're really going to be able to like feel your creativity. You feel this kind of more romantic side of life, being able to really let in your five senses and like literally feel good, actually. Because Venus is like bringing us what feels really good to be in. Hey, even nice cars rule Venus. Making money rules Venus. To be honest, getting a massage with like expensive oils is Venus. Even just smelling flowers and having a great day with friends is very Venus ruled. So it really, when you look at someone's chart, it's really valuable to know that whatever the sign it is where it's kind of wanting to be expressed. The house can also tell you where dimension is this getting a lot of attention. But it also really gives most context to how not only are you going to be able to be relatable with for your own chart, but in a relationship, Venus is helping you understand what is the kind of main love language that this person feels the most at home. Because we all can feel differentiations of all the signs of what love and connection is. But I won't lie, Venus and Aries might feel love and affection very differently than Venus and Cancer or Venus and Taurus or something like that.
Yeah, and we're about to break that down in just a second. I did want to mention one other thing. If you can find the house that starts off with the sign of Taurus or Libra, so people who have their ascendant or their rising sign at Taurus or Libra, this will be especially important for you. Those houses are governed by Venus, which is something that Ricky was just talking about. So for example, if your ascendant is Taurus, Venus is going to actually describe more about your personality and the way you make decisions and the way that people view you and even your purpose in life path. If you have Libra or Taurus on your descendant or the start of the 7th house, you will see that that's actually your relationship planet. So of course, Venus is always going to be a relationship planet in anyone's chart, but then the start of the 7th house, so the descendant or the cusp sign, is going to also be a relationship planet. So for some people, Venus will be both of those things for them. And that will be especially important in describing the kind of partner that they attract, the kind of luck that they have in relationships. And so if you can just kind of look at which house it rules, then you can begin to uncover more about the state of that house. And that's why when people ask, oh my gosh, help, I don't have a planet in this house. The house is empty. What does that mean? It's like, just look at the planet that rules that house, and that will give you the context and the layers.
Very true.
So yeah, so that would be another reason that we want to dive into Venus, besides just relationships, is to better understand the context of other things in your chart.
I want to talk about this. So like Venus, so in this context of what Courtney's talking about, Venus has a rulership, and that is Taurus and Libra. To even get more, this means that if Venus is Miss Aphrodite, Miss Princess Venus, she's sitting at home in a throne room in earth and air for Taurus and Libra. And to break it down, Taurus would rule the physical properties, the little bit of materialism within the feminine, but it allows things to be felt, smelled, tasted, heard, that are all of sensual beauty, of high quality beauty. When it's in Libra, it's now more in this kind of romantic connection, more kind of an actual personal relationship. I almost think of dancers. I always think of the masculine feminine dancing principle. Many of us have disconnected with. We should all be reconnected with that. But that allow this energy of how we relate with people and beauty in general. So by those two rulerships, now we can use Venus to really understand, because everyone's chart has this, of where they're being aspected and alive in full in where they're trying to show up for us. So even if you don't have a planet in Libra or Taurus, the house that those show up in is also going to reveal where that aspect of Venus is unveiling itself. So I just kind of want to bring some context there.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit of an example to help you guys see what that means, I had a client, for example, that Venus was one of his relationship planets, but it also ruled his fifth house. So one of the issues that came up was actually because Venus was having some difficult aspects. One of the issues that came up was that his like music career was getting in the way of his connections. So he would find that none of his partners supported his music career, which is really typical for fifth house topics. And so it's like that became a clash. So the way that the fifth house was tied into his relationships through the sign of Taurus or Libra or whatever it was, can show a lot about like some of the issues you can see in the relationship, good or bad, coming to play.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive right into Venus and all of the signs then.
Yeah, I'd love
actually, wait, before we do that, should we talk about male versus female since we haven't
we definitely should context that. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways this can be aspected. For a man's chart, when you see Venus, this is actually a connection to one. And this is also, just if you're a dominantly masculine or feminine, it's however you identify. But I just want to say that, like, for normally in the masculine, when I look at my Venus, this is how I connect with my creativity, my femininity, and how I actually get to kind of like feel good and transpire into my environment. Where am I actually wanting my relationships to feel at most flourishment? But in corresponding, I definitely want Courtney to touch on this, but when I see it in a female's chart, it's much more of actually the kind of permeating radiance that is coming from the femininity. It's almost like the femininity is being expressed where this Venus is for the feminine, but in the masculine, it's almost kind of like, even in a way, what we might be most attracted to, what kind of feminine energy is kind of like most alluring, if you will. There's a lot of context though that can go up and down, but for the most part, I feel that.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we're going to again say it's kind of whatever you identify as. We're not trying to put everyone into a box, but in terms of male and female, I'm just going to kind of say it like that so you guys understand. But yeah, so definitely Venus for the feminine has a lot to do with her comfort in her own femininity and sexuality. So the moon will also represent this as a woman to some degree, but I definitely see this. For example, I had another client who had Venus conjunct Chiron, which is an asteroid of childhood wounding. And that's definitely something immediately that I could see was that she would have trouble with her feminine identity. So anything kind of happening to Venus can show a lot about where she might restrict herself, even physically, aesthetically, because for Venus, it's going to show for women a lot about how we dress ourselves, how we express ourselves. So for example, if you Venus making a square to Saturn, you might dress more conservatively, or you might be less comfortable with affection and with touch. And this could be for both men and women, but especially it's going to be enhanced for women because this is a female planet, you know, Aphrodite, it's ruling over women. Whereas for men, I definitely agree with Ricky in terms of the physical attractiveness, like what they're looking for in a partner, what they're looking for in a relationship. And that, again, will be true for both sexes, but it's especially true for men because that's just kind of what their chart is predominantly saying, that this is my prototype or my idea of what the ideal feminine is. And for women, we also have that. This is my prototype or idea of what the ideal feminine is. And I am feminine. And this is how I identify. Or men, this is how I want my partner to look like or be like. And so I definitely think, you know, kind of where it shows up in the male or female's chart will show a lot about what they expect and hope from a partner.
Mm-hmm. This isn't fully universal. Like, you know, I've definitely seen people really attracted, even if the Venus isn't like fully aspected. But what I want to remind this is like, that is your love language. Like where Venus is how you want to connect with love languages, you know, and how, you know, as far as a male is how is like how I want to express, how I want to have a relationship actually is, and I have, you know, Venus and fire, and there's a lot more in engagement. There's a lot more kind of like adventure and kind of there's a different way that Venus wants to express and feel love very differently than maybe Venus and water, if you will. But that doesn't mean that it's just going to isolate, like, you know, you only go for these kind of partners. It's just making sure that when this Venus is nourished is how, at least as a male, that's how I'm going to feel like, oh, I'm really receiving the kind of feminine polarity within my relationship. And that's actually making me feel a lot more companionship and a lot more kind of affection, compassion, and adornment. So at least in a male, like, you know, the Venus is almost kind of like, this is how to access one's love language, so to speak.
Yeah. So basically it's not the be all end all, but it is one important aspect of compatibility,
Right.
and definitely shows how people show up and offer their love in a relationship as well as what they best receive. Because people will offer things and it's not received as well or not appreciated as much. Obviously that we all know that about love languages. An example for if you look at like two charts together, which is synastry, I had somebody with Venus, I believe it was in the 6th house. And so she showed up in the 6th house of her partner. And so she showed up for her partner by cooking for her, cleaning for her, doing these like little daily acts of service.
Yeah.
And then when I reversed them, the other person's Venus was in their partner's 2nd house. And so she showed up by giving her gifts and supporting her financially and just kind of spoiling her with food and, you know, going out. And so I think it's a really, not just a good planet to kind of observe in our own chart, but when we create two charts together, like a bi-wheel, we'll start to see where those love languages can come up so we can appreciate our partner more and offer them recognition, because we can see, oh, theirs is acts of service in my life. Because maybe in general, they're not always acts of service, but sometimes that relationship can like ping or awaken that within them where they start offering that more. So at least kind of recognizing where your partner is trying to show up can be really helpful to create more cooperation and harmony, which is what Venus is all about.
To add more to what Courtney's saying, and I use this analogy of the flower, and I want to re-invite that again, is basically Venus is showing like how this flower wants to be watered. And that goes for male or female. And like, you know, certain flowers all have different tones. You know, some are much more tropical, some are a little more arid, some a little bit more like lots of, like there's just so many different variations on the way someone would like to be watered and is blooming and in showing how they can bloom and offer themselves. And this is just how we're correlating with love languages. And then once you can kind of understand that, we can step back from any kind of selfish way that we're looking at relationships and understand how can I really meet this plant, this relationship, this life form in a way that is going to be much more tailored or in correspondent resonance with how they've experienced love and beauty. So.
I love that. I love that. I love when people really reflect on how they can meet their partner's needs, because so many people are always thinking about how that person isn't meeting their needs. But depends on your chart, but most people are thinking about themselves and what they are getting rather than what they're giving, and rather than how they can show up and what their partner requires or what makes them feel most loved. And that's why I love doing these synastry readings and these episodes, because that's what relationships are all about, is about really the other person, and then of course yourself too. But yeah.
Totally. It's a common situation our society kind of comes with, and it's taking care of ourselves first, for sure. Knowing your own Venus is how you need to be taken care of. But how are we going to like toe to dance? How is that going to happen? And versus people stepping on each other's toes because we're not being able to understand each other's languages. And then it can become a really beautiful experience to really see, how can I really merge and understand this person's love language, and then become more dancing in that kind of relationship field. So even just because one Venus or another is more compatible than the other, just because something comes easy too, doesn't always mean it's going to have the greatest rewards either.
Oh my gosh, I have a story for that.
Yeah. So sometimes malefic energy is in your best interest,
Yes.
depending on the situation, of course.
Absolutely. And you can look at anyone's chart who's extremely successful. They have some really hard aspects, some really difficult things going on. It's because they had to grow in resilience and wisdom through experience, and then they became successful. It's not like they just got an inheritance and it was all handed to them and then they just flitted away in happiness. And it's funny because I was kind of having this friends with benefits relationship with this one guy, a little personal, but I looked at our charts together, and we had super compatible charts. There was all trines and sextiles, and literally there was almost nothing that was negative in the chart. I haven't actually seen my chart that compatible with someone ever. We hit it off right away. We were good friends right away. But that was the thing, though, is that we actually, the relationship just didn't work. We both decided we were too different, which is interesting because we had really compatible charts, but we both knew we were too different, and it just wasn't healthy. It wasn't good. Just because you have a trine doesn't mean that it's healthy. It can be a flow of energy between two planets that is unimpeded, but it's not positive, if that makes sense. And so we had all these beautiful aspects, and the relationship itself was just it made me feel depleted. So you're not looking for a perfect chart, guys.
I've had these are all good. So in the kind of nitty gritty is an element meeting an element is a trine, an air Venus to an air Venus, water Venus to a water Venus, fire Venus to a fire Venus. And I've experienced this trine. I've experienced a 1 degree orb trine, 21 to 22. And so to break it down is even though that relationship went well and it was very easy, it also didn't really give enough zest, sometimes tension, that actually helps inspire a little bit more of tenacity and passion. So there's a lot of things to get into on this, but I'm really excited to jump in. I think we've touched a lot of details, and just all moving forward to how these might look in for your chart and a close someone's chart.
All right, let's jump now into Venus and all the signs, which I'm sure you guys are super curious about. Starting off with Venus in detriment in Aries. What do you have to say about Venus and Aries?
2 things.
What is detriment, first of all?
Nothing to say at all. No, I'm playing around. So detriment, that sounds like a dirty word right now. We need to clean that up a little bit. Detriment just means that if Venus was this Aphrodite little princess, she'd rather be in the land of Taurus and Libra, as we spoke before. And Libra would definitely be about art, music, very flowers and scents, and everything's peachy cream. But when we go into the God of War house of Aries, we have Venus now in a very different aspect. And so when it's considered detriment, it just means that the Venusian energy is not really expressing itself at full capacity here. But hold on right now. This does not mean that the femininity energy is not there. It just means the way it's expressing itself is maybe in a much more Martian kind of way. Now, when I think of Venus and Aries, though, I definitely think of someone with a Ferrari. And I think of someone that's like ready for a hot date and they're ready to go out and they know what they want. They engage in it. They almost take relationships a little bit like a challenge. Challenge is almost like an attractive thing for them.
Like they like the pursuit.
Pursuit
The chase.
sometimes there's a little bit of competition, but there is a pursuit that makes it kind of like this kind of, and it's in the fire sign of Aries. So it's like got a lot of passion and drive behind it. The biggest thing about detriment, though, is making sure that sometimes Venus and Aries can be a little selfish. I honestly got to say, like, sometimes you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. But Venus and Aries has a ton of energy and passion that is contagiously giving off leadership to everyone around it. They almost always will be in a leadership role when I've seen Venus and Aries. The other little detail I like to add if it's in detriment is just to make sure that you don't burn yourself all the way out, like full floor, that Ferrari on the first gateway out the door. And so sometimes I've seen Venus and Aries get pushing relationships too far, getting too excited about the relationship without putting in a little bit more of the earth, or however you interpret this, groundedness, to letting the relationship be more long-term than just a nice fling. You need to put in that dedication because, you know, we can feel a lot of passion for someone all at once, but are we willing to put in that work to dedicate and commit and take care of this plant? You know, it's not just going out and having a great time. That's all great, but making sure that Venus and Aries can really recognize where it might be, you know, thinking only about itself, thinking about only satisfaction or the challenge or however, and let them know that this needs to be a candle to be stoked for a long time, so to speak.
Yeah, you guys. I have a few friends with Venus and Aries. I don't
great.
know. One of them definitely is not. She likes to be more behind the scenes. She's a Pisces, so she definitely doesn't like the whole leadership role thing. I think maybe the leadership or the dominance could come out in partnerships though. Like where, hey, I'm going to be the one to pursue or make the first move, or at the very least be hasty, like you're saying, in the decision making. And so that's one of the biggest things that I see with Venus and Aries is often them having a few bumps and bruises along the way of choosing the wrong partner. And it's because they are just like quick, you know, they quickly fall for people. They can get swept up in the moment. And then they realize later, after they've already gone 0 to 100, that this person maybe is abusive, or this person has trouble with alcohol, or they have this whole past that they aren't talking about. And so there's all these things that I think come out later once more time has passed that could have been avoided if they approached the style of the relationship from a different way. I will also say that I've seen a really interesting combination with some people in my life who are almost like self-sacrificial in relationships, but then they have Venus and Aries. And I'm like, how does that play out? Because Venus and Aries definitely can be selfish. So I think it's kind of depending a lot on the rest of your chart. But I do think at the end of the day, even if you tend to sacrifice yourself for others, there will be some line in the sand that you draw with Venus and Aries where you're like, I need to do this for me. I need my alone time. I got to do me and be independent right now. Like, you know, whatever that looks like, kind of that Sasha Fierce attitude coming out, like that Venus and Aries putting herself first, even though maybe sometimes she is a doormat based off of the rest of her chart and previous actions. That is a possibility. And in terms of just like being erratic in love and having quite a few relationships with the wrong people, I think I definitely can see that in the chart of Elizabeth Taylor, who
I was just thinking about her, and you told me something. She had it retrograde, and she got in like
she has Venus in Aries exactly conjunct Uranus.
So it's erratic
in the 5th house.
Okay.
So she's pleasure seeking.
She's super in love and
very
love
unstable,
with love.
up and down with Uranus. And then the Aries, like she's in it one moment and then she quickly loses interest and she's on to the next thing. So,
especially if she's won the battle.
Right. She conquered.
You've won the battle. That's the one thing with Venus and Aries need to look at it. And it's not that, again, like, you know, just if it's like I won and it was all like the journey, and yet like, well, what was the long term in this? So
exactly. Yeah. And she had 18 different marriages.
18.
Actually, I think
18,
but one was a repeat. So it's like 17. But I mean, yeah, you don't see that every
Just that
day.
alone. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to, yeah. So basically, if you have Venus exactly conjunct Uranus in the fifth house in Aries, you might have kind of a similar experience where you kind of get burnt out on people, you get over people, and it's mostly about you and what brings you satisfaction. And you kind of just like pick up and go to the next person until they kind of wear out and move on. That's not all Venus and Aries, that's specific to her chart, but that is a kind of general theme that someone has to kind of sustain your interest and your fire and
Right.
inspire you in order to maintain themselves in your life.
This is a placement that I really think someone needs to have either really strong air element that is willing to be kind of the follower leader situation, and because this is not all bad, I really want to recognize that because Venus and Aries people really light people up in a room. When they show up, they really bring firecrackers with them, and they might do it unconsciously in their way, especially females. But I did want to say that Venus and Aries, like, you have to know also someone's got to be able to stoke that fire and be able to kind of keep up with you because you got a lot of energy. There's a lot of femininity and energy. Like, she wants to experience everything, but in Aries, she kind of want to have it all. So the truth is someone's got to keep up with you or keep you entertained or keep you energetic. So that way you can always keep feeling stoked about life. And I just want to kind of end on that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. You want the relationship to feel fresh because Aries is characteristic of starting new. So they're really good at starting new things. And so if the relationship gets stale or stagnant, redundant, not fulfilling, like Venus and Aries wants to seek adventure and they want a partner that can do that with them in some respect.
Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty good. We can keep going, but yeah, I think that's a good rundown.
All right. Venus and Taurus, which I have.
Oh, really? You want to take it away and open
Yeah,
it up?
I do. I've actually spent a lot of time trying to understand Venus and Taurus. You'd think it would be super easy to understand, but it's something that maybe it's just so part of me that I'm like, what is this?
I noticed that Venus and Taurus, being the rulership in the earth sign, loves comfy things. And
oh my God.
Len, you're in a nice sweater right now, even right now with all the pillows, you know.
You guys.
But
like that is my number one thing when it comes. I mean, we're talking about relationships. So, but I will say when it comes to comfort in the relationship, even like I am definitely looking for someone who has predominant earth or who has at least a really calm kind of personality, especially because I have a lot of air in my other aspects of my chart. So I definitely need somebody who kind of grounds me down. I need a relationship. Like that's the thing is I think with Venus and Taurus, I think the biggest thing that is the most noticeable is how slow we are. I know that everyone says like, oh yeah, Taurus is slow. Like, no, it is not. It is so true. I mean, there's a reason they say that. And even just like getting to know anyone, I'm like, I want to be friends with you. I want to understand what issues you have. Like, I want to know what I'm getting into. So it's like the antithesis of Venus and Aries, which you'll see that when the signs, like the signs next to it will have some kind of missing link that the sign before it didn't have.
I always like to look at Aries as like the hare and Taurus is the tortoise and how they win the race. So.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so obviously Venus is thriving here. I would say I generally have good relationships. I think I know how to show up to a relationship. I think the part about Taurus being very practical and simple is really important. Like, I think that I understand what it takes to put into a relationship. Like, I know the work that it takes and I'm willing to show up and put that work. I don't expect things to blossom overnight. I don't even expect like big romance. Like, I'm not even a super romantic person. I'm like, I don't care if you like sweep me off my feet and take me on a jet to France. I mean, that sounds great. I mean, everyone would want that, but I guess like at the end of the day,
there's a Venus and Taurus watching this video going like, I just have that and I loved it. Like,
and she probably has Pisces in her chart too.
Something. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. But at the end of the day, if the basics of the relationship are not there, like if you are not showing up to support me, if I can't trust you, if I feel like you're not secure in my life, basically it doesn't matter what else you do on top of that. And I know that some people can get really swept up in the excitement and the romanticism, but at the end of the day, they look at the core aspects of the relationship and they're actually quite lacking. And that person shows up as in that way to make up for the things that they're lacking, maybe being there for them every day or whatever that is. And so as a Venus and Taurus person, I'm like, it is the simple things. It is the little things. And I really don't care beyond that. Because if it's not the little things primarily, then everything else is just extra.
Definitely. So Venus being the ruler in Taurus again, I never looked at Taurus as like basic. I don't think anything about Venus and Taurus is necessarily basic, but it's definitely Taurus brings things back and cuts all the glitter and gets back to what is the meat and potatoes, like what is the grounded situation that's happening here.
You're making me hungry.
So and definitely food. Yeah,
vegan
food's
meat.
Gotta be a love language for Venus.
Oh
and Taurus,
my God, I just want to eat all the time.
Yeah. Venus and Taurus has got to definitely be like, I literally think of someone, and to correct me if I'm wrong here. Whoop, let me just a little shifting. But it's like, so I think of like Taurus is almost like, we didn't just get the whipped cream on the thing. It's like almost guzzling the whole whipped cream bottle in your face and just being like Taurus is almost a little bit like, I want the cake and another slice of cake. I want it all kind of thing, depending on the individual. But it's like definitely like
the buffet.
Like kind of a sensual kind of like, I want to really just feel like comfortable and good and slow and satisfying kind of vibe versus it being kind of like all this glitter and all this wild swept off feet vibe that you're speaking into. As like, I also need just to feel the support. Like I just need to feel the grounded support of stage to stage to stage what's happening.
Can I trust you? Are you secure? Is it stable? And that's why we're so slow, because we're so loyal. Like I am a ride or die. And I will say that like to the end of the earth. I think that is the thing about Venus and Scorpio, Venus and Taurus. Like we are fucking ride or dies. And I want to know that if I'm going to die for you, you're worth dying for. And I'm not going to do
the worth element. Yep.
At the drop of a hat, like I can't just trust you right from the beginning.
Trust is earned.
And so, I think that's a really important part about Taurus is that loyalty and like defending their loved ones, being there for them through the thick and thin. And with sensuality, I will definitely say like, it's a little personal, but I definitely have to have like a certain vibe, my preference before like engaging in sexual matters. So like it has to be the right lighting, like the blankets have to be soft. Like I have to feel the vibe. And if it's not, it does like take away from the moment, or it distracts me and things like that, because the environment, like Venus and Taurus can be really affected by the aesthetic of the environment. And so I will say that it's super important.
Environment. Yeah.
The physical environment. And then even when, engaging anything, like I like to be very close to my partner. Like that feels really reassuring to me. Like the touch, the sensuality of the Venus and Taurus. Whereas Venus and Aries might like it maybe a little bit more like powerful, really aggressive. I mean, that kind of depends on Mars, but
we can get into that later, but I get what you're going.
That's more Mars. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, I guess the other thing I will say though is about the stubbornness. Like I would actually like you to comment on that. I'd be curious to hear what you have to say.
So I'll be honest, with all readings and all charts I've looked at, Venus and Taurus is one of the more rare placements I've ever seen.
Okay.
But I will say, so there's not enough individuals I can say, but if I know something with Taurus for sure, because I've had a lot of best friends that are Taurus, but with Venus here particularly is like, I would definitely say that you're probably stubborn with certain things of how you that you buy. I wanted to really share this right now. Venus and Taurus for sure. I'm going to throw a dart at this because you're the one that has it. But like, you don't just buy things. You got to buy the best of the best stuff. You're going to take a long time to make sure that you buy the stuff, including this mics or whatever it was. But like, Venus and Aries, screw it, just buy it,
I did like 30 hours of research before.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I mean, if you have the finances, obviously, you're going to try to invest in something that has longevity to it for sure. And that includes people. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful. I will say the stubbornness thing, I think, is there. I don't know. I'm also quite adaptable as a Gemini, but in general, I think anyone can be stubborn. But yeah, in relationships, that might come out more. I'm not even sure.
Do you let no be an answer? And I know that could be brought in so many different terms, but I mean,
Depends on what the
if someone's like,
question is.
no, we're not going to do that today. Does that like really bum you? Like Venus and Taurus is like, no, I need to do this. Like, I don't know. I'm just curious. That's actually just a debatable question.
I guess it depends on what it is.
Has
If I
anyone
didn't
just
really
like said
care,
no? Like, no, this is not happening. And you just like,
no, I just be like, all right, I'm gonna go do it by myself. Like, I don't need you to do
oh,
this thing.
gotcha.
And if I do need them to do this thing, then I will make them feel bad. If I really want to do it. I'm just being honest.
No, I got
Yeah,
you.
no, a little bit of emotional
hilarious.
manipulation.
Okay.
A little toxic.
No, you're good. I just think, for also Venus and Taurus, and I haven't seen this really, but I know Megan Fox, she's a Taurus, I believe, and I could very much be wrong that she is Venus and Taurus, but I'm kind of going off my cranium right now. And I just think there's an aesthetic beauty that kind of want to be in your environment, and there's something like I want to have I don't know. Another thing, just to bring this, I've totally went left field here. Taurus with lighting. What is up with that? Like Taurus have a funny thing with lighting. Like it creates the scene of so many variations of so many Tauruses. I've heard like, no man, we need the light on here. Like
I will. That's the first thing I go to fix.
It's so important right now. Like
yeah, they're like yeah, like let's just have this like wild and crazy moment, and I'm just like, let me go set up the lighting first. Like I can't. It's gonna bother me.
Like dimming 20 minutes. Like goes back, checks it. Like that's funny.
Stops mid-sex. No, I'm just kidding. Anywho, I promise I'm not emotionally manipulative, guys. At least not for the most part. Okay.
I wouldn't say that's Venus and Taurus though. I wouldn't say that to Venus and Tauruses. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Venus and Gemini.
Venus in Gemini.
My friend that I was talking about that had friends with benefits, he has Venus and Gemini. And his Venus was on my sun.
I have dated more Venus and Geminis than I can count or like at this point want to. But I got a lot of beautiful things to say about Venus and Gemini. They're probably the most articulate, friendship making.
Oh my God.
Know how to connect with any group. I don't care what color, race, shade, whatever you come from, you know how to make friends with everyone in your environment or know how to get everyone to like you. And
yeah,
you might not even
loved
think,
him.
You might not think that you might not even be in that reality, but everyone else is having that experience.
For sure. Dude, like literally everyone would be like, God, I loved blank. And he's just so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like everyone loves him because he's Venus and Gemini. It's just like how they are, even if they're not super articulate in terms of like academia. It's just their ability to relate to people and make everyone feel comfortable and talk to any kind of person from any background. That I think is really what makes them shine.
But I would argue actually that Venus and Gemini is very articulate on academia. Depending on the subject matter, I've met some of the most well-read people. Someone that loves getting in their industry and learning all the little micro details, they love that stuff. And it's something even funny, if Venus and Gemini, we're going to say this, is like, the tone of the voice is everything. It's like how everything is spoken is like a total different experience for them. And like, you might be like, just come on. Like, there's a guy back out there watching this video, go like, man, what are you talking about? And be like, if I talk to you this, I promise you're going to feel some type of way, bro. Okay. But that's the whole thing. It's Gemini's like, it's like curious. And I just noticed the femininity. They always have like a high pitched part of their vocal cords. Even my friends, there was like, I had a buddy, he's a large African-American guy, like, and sometimes there's a little, I don't know why, there's that like high-pitched part of their laugh or something. So like, if they can play, laugh, learn, and talk and discuss and open up ideas with very many different people. And I want to say one last beautiful thing about Venus and Gemini, they really can see the beauty in all the uniqueness of people. Literally, someone can look very different, and they really like pull out something. Wow, they just see everybody is beautiful and in all its strangeness.
Yeah, they just have a natural open-mindedness, kind of like a strong Uranus aspect in someone's chart. Like they don't seem as judgmental. They seem very open to talk and get to know everyone. That can be a problem in relationships, I will say, especially for someone like me who. Well, I don't know if this is like the Venus and Taurus or Venus in my 8th house, but I definitely have a jealous side. And I just could not deal with somebody with Venus and Gemini because they seem like this might even be the case for me as a Gemini in general. Like when you're talking and you're laughing and you're getting along with everyone and you have this kind of little like mischievous twinkle in your eye, because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is like this mischievous kind of character. You have this like look about you and this way of being that could be perceived as flirting with a lot of people.
It's a strong flirting position. Venus in Gemini wants to be flirted with hard.
Yeah.
Like,
So some of them are full on like, I am a flirt. And then some of them are maybe just social, but it comes across as flirting. Regardless, the energy is there, right? Like
totally.
I mean, the intention might differ from person to person, but that on the outside looking in as like their partner could be disturbing for someone like me, or for someone who feels less
Right.
secure in their attachment, which is normal for a lot of people. And so I think it's going to be super important for a Venus and Gemini person to have a partner who's extremely secure, who they have really good communication between them. So there doesn't crop up certain instances of people misperceiving what's really going on.
I definitely want to speak on two things. If this is the definitely person that just loves to stay and chat and just inquisitively talk about interesting little concepts and jiving into it. I will also say this: Venus and Gemini. This is not an exact fact, but they much more lean with the way they're so diversified and unadulterated. Like there's no filter with judgment to people. They can, not for all people. Much more of the chart needs to be looked at and analyzed. But this is definitely a kind of group that might lean more polyamorous in their way, because the way that they interact with people is just as balanced as every person has value and connection to talk to. And so Venus and Gemini just feels like that's just me living myself, and it's very lighthearted and it's fun and carefree in many ways.
Yeah. So again, kind of with Venus and Aries, there is that potential for them to have like a wandering eye. With Aries, it's like, okay, this person, I'm loyal when I'm with them, but then I tire of them and I move on. That's not always going to be the case. It's a little bit dramatic, but that's the potential. With Venus and Gemini, it's like, oh, I like you, but I also like you, and I also like you, and fuck, I like everyone, because everyone has something so cool about them. So there can be some like, affairs that happen with people with this placement. It definitely depends on the rest of their chart. I have a friend who has this so much Taurus energy, super faithful, super loyal, and is kind of offended by this stereotype. But
Right.
I mean, it's a stereotype for a reason, because it is going to be more common to people who, have a little bit of a wandering eye.
I definitely don't insinuate myself that I would say this means that anyone has a wandering eye. I'm just speaking into that, like, Venus and Gemini just wants to feel free and intellectual to connect with all people. By no means necessary, if you were trying to like date or connect with the Venus and Gemini, you should ever feel like they shouldn't be able to be free butterfly. There's a butterfly.
You can't constrict a Venus and Gemini.
You
Like
just
that's
can't.
their
You just
natural skill and beauty. Yeah. You need someone who appreciates that and is okay with that.
They're also really good networkers. I've never seen anyone just make a couple jokes, make friends with a bartender, and start getting free drinks in a second. Venus and Gemini, you got some skills there right now. So, but being able to feel free is a big aspect. Is really important for you. So, yeah, I feel that's the most I could share.
All
without getting
right.
deeper.
I guess the last thing I'll just say really quickly is just needing to connect with your partner mentally. So you're not going to be somebody who's like, oh, I really, really care about how everyone looks. Like my Venus and Gemini friend, yeah, of course that was important, because that's a little bit important to everyone. But the people that he dated in the past were actually people that he just super vibed with intellectually and socially.
Totally.
So it was more so about the kind of conversations they shared and the ability to kind of crack jokes and be playful and all of those aspects, instead of, is this girl hot or is this guy hot kind of thing.
Yeah, intellectualness is definitely that's the biggest detail for Venus and Gemini. If you kept, but I've also noticed some of the biggest bookworms, or some of the biggest, they either read a lot, they study a lot, they love learning a lot. They've done a lot of like psychological analysis on this stuff. They journal a lot, and that's just really good for their self-expression. And if this is something you haven't connected with, I invite you to try that, because it's very freeing for them.
All right. Up next, we have Venus in Cancer.
So I'm a big fan of Venus and Cancer. We have the feminine energy within the divine feminine zone of the moon, and
Cancer.
what I've found with Venus and Cancer is these are some of the best listeners I've ever met. Like, just
Oh,
sit down and really just listen and take it all in. We say like a shoulder to cry on, or like, there's kind of more like that intellectual understanding. They're also big foodies. They love the food, love the feel good food. I think, you could literally seek out a Venus and Cancer's favorite food, make it for them on like a special date. And I think they'll just get all like, oh my God, I love you. And then like, it's almost like Venus and Cancer is sometimes has so much kind of emotional depth to them. But I definitely find like something like their cooking talks, like the things they make really speak. I just feel like there's one of my best friends that's had this, and there's nothing more than just sharing time and space, having a drink, and just really connecting about life. And if anyone listen to more of me express myself in any other way, Venus and Cancer's always been there to really soak it all in and hear you and express. And I do think though they need a little support, because sometimes when they're in their emotions, they can get really really railed in there. They really can be very sensitive people, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. That's it. I mean, that's one of the first things I think about is how sensitive they are. And when you think of Cancer, you think of the crab who likes to protect itself because it is so sensitive. And so what I will see
So
often,
juicy inside.
yeah, so sweet, so juicy, so much to offer. And I think that comes up a lot with Venus and Cancer is I think that they're probably like very giving in terms of their energy and their nurturing to the ones that they love. Like these are going to be the people who are quite mothering, even like regardless of gender. I can see them like taking care of their friends, taking care, like being the mom in the group, being the protective one as well. That's something I see a lot with Cancers is that they are extremely like defensive and protective of the ones that they love. Like I think of the mama bear kind of archetype.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess I don't have like a ton of personal experience with Venus and Cancer individuals though. So I don't have a lot of anecdotes necessarily to add, but I just think that there is a strong kind of caretaker energy to them, sensitivity to them. And also I think that they will navigate their relationships through their, not only their emotions, but their intuition as well, since they are connected to the moon. So I feel like these are going to be people who know the right person to gravitate towards just because they feel it. Like they feel it in their heart, they feel it in their body, and they can kind of intuitively feel when maybe a mood shifts in the room, when someone that they love is upset, when they need to be there for someone. I feel like they're really attentive and tuned in that way.
I need to say this, if you have Venus in Cancer, I want you to wait an entire lunar cycle before getting involved in a relationship, because you need to feel all the emotions within a total new moon, full moon, new moon stage before you get sexually or interactively involved, because you are one of the most hardest to like make amends and break up and be fully complete with the situation. I find that like, your emotions get so wrapped up into the situation. You sometimes can love and linger for a very long time. And it takes a lot of like rebuilding and self-understanding because you're so emotional. And like sometimes water, like Venus and Cancer is like honey. It's a little sticky, but it's like so like precious and good. And like, I feel like you want to be in relationships that feel like honey. They're warm and soothing and like sweet and precious. And like, definitely need good cuddles. You're a cuddler. You need all the cuddles in the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it extra too cute, but it's definitely like feeling a form of security, like when a child has like a teddy bear, or feeling like lovers, like being able to like really support you. And I've noticed Venus and Cancers have done some of the biggest places of supporting me. Truly. Some of us helped me move, pick me up from the airport. Just, I don't even know, the list goes on of them supporting me, help me make some of the biggest friends, or like pushing me in my own business and stuff. So Venus and Cancer is a beautiful support system. I really love you guys. And, it's just making sure that you give yourself to know what is safe and understand, because you might get too emotionally connected to situations and not know how to say no to it or look a little bit more on a Capricorn side of things. It's like, no, I just kind of want to, yeah, I'm just going to go for it. You know? Like, and so it's not that that's bad. It's just also making sure that your needs get taken care of, because you will fall potentially in a caregiving stage. And I just think it's harder for you to like disconnect from the past or let go of certain things sometimes. This also though helps make you someone that's like, a lot more connected to like friendships and nostalgia. Your relationship with your mother is a profound relationship, and rather if it was good or bad, it gives a lot of insight to helping you realize yourself as a person and realizing what are the kind of partners you want to connect with in your world.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The connection with the mother and the way that you were raised directly has an impact on the kind of relationships that you choose and how you show up in a relationship. Again, you might sometimes be prone to over nurturing people. So making sure that you do choose the right partners. And then I guess the other thing that I would add is sometimes with the moon, there can be like fluctuations in moods. So maybe you might find yourself feeling different types of ways in different moments, specifically in your relationship. Like maybe some days you're feeling super sweet and nurturing and loving and supportive. And then the next day you just like didn't have a great day and you're feeling grouchy, and it kind of shows in your relationship. Whereas some people can kind of separate the two, a lot of people can't. And I think Venus in Cancer would be one of those people who their moods are going to be more likely to kind of come out and affect their partnership.
To definitely piggyback off that, it's definitely good, especially females with Venus in Cancer, where it's being much more presented. You almost have your heart on your sleeve in a way, and it's really good to have a grounded partner that can receive that, listen, but also know how to have discernment to not get wrapped up in it too. This is where, like maybe someone with much more earth energy or something that can bring that support is really good for you. Another thing that I really share for Venus and Cancer is really healing, is also just express yourself and like don't get too wrapped up in the emotions all the time. That sometimes we do the crab thing and we keep it all in, but the truth is like when you have someone that you really trust and feel secure with to really express yourself, you have a really deep and enriching relationship there. So yeah,
I love that. All right, let's move on to Venus in Leo. So I have a friend who has this. It's a very interesting placement. I have a kind of odd relationship with Leo, just given my family history and like some aspects, some challenging aspects in my chart with Leo. But it's a fascinating one for sure with Venus and Leo. I think one of the things that I notice with my friend who has this is like,
big fan of Venus and Leo personally.
Of course, he has a Leo rising, so but he has a great relationship with Leo.
Got no Venus and Leo.
Yeah, but So I mean, I definitely embody part of the Leo energy, and at least what I've seen with my friend was, I could tell very much that she loved like to be loved. She loved to be adored. She loved to be seen. She wanted people to want her. There was like a strong aspect of, I want to be desired, and I want like my partner to show me around, and and she might not
post
even
me on social media. I'm not that necessarily, but you know what I mean.
And I think that it's interesting because it's like, well, with my Venus and Taurus, I'm like, well, do you like the partner or do you like the way that they make you feel? And that is how Venus and Leo kind of comes across to me is like, I love to be loved and adored. So it's kind of more about themselves at times. But when they find the right person, they are extremely affectionate, extremely romantic. They're usually very loyal. This person wasn't, but they're usually very loyal. And so they have really beautiful qualities as well. But I do think that there is that, because Leo does kind of revolve, or it's connected to the sun. It does have a connection to the ego. Mm-hmm. So there is some ego in the presence of the love and romantic relationship. And so if you are good with that, if you're okay with working with that, then like doting on them and like showing them off and like making them really feel like the center of your world, or like, the light of your life, is just going to make them feel so good and so secure in that relationship.
I have dated a Leo in Venus and Leo back in high school, And I got a lot of things to say about it. But one thing with Venus and fire is we want you to show your love. We
Yeah.
want you to show it. We need some fireworks. We need a little
Demonstrative.
bit of like demonstration. I need to like feel the presence of that. Like when you see a firework, and I think of Leo is fireworks sometimes. Venus and Leo is very show me the fireworks. And when you get that pop and you're like, wow, that's that feeling. Like love is that fantastic. I would definitely say like if there was a Venus and Leo's kind of like heartthrob moment is being kissed on 4th of July fireworks kind of vibe,
Aw.
and having that moment, is very Venus and Leo. I will say they're extremely loyal. If you're really fanning their flame, so to speak, when I think of Leo, it's actually super committed fire. It's actually like really like I want this love to never die kind of
Yeah.
vibe. And I will also say a secret thing, and I think I can't speak for men and women, but I really think the health, your physical beauty is also connected to the health of your relationship and self-love.
Interesting.
And I've seen it very apparent, especially with Leos, because especially certain degrees actually. But like Venus and Leo, if I know anyone, and this one of me, God bless this person, just bless you. But they got me a present on Valentine's Day in every class period. They made a show and tell of love. Every class period, there was a gift waiting for me. Okay. And there was a very like gregarious, and it was a Leo with Venus and Leo. So it's like
Yeah. Oh,
more
yeah.
more Leo on it. But like, to be honest, there is so much adoring. There's a lot
Yeah.
of compassion. There's a lot of commitment, but they definitely need a lot. They need to be, there's drama in this person. They want to feel that drama. They want to feel like the like,
They're
the
alive.
finger like almost playing on the flame of like where love is, a little bit. So if there's not a little bit of that spark, they almost have to like make it out and say, I want you to show me and feel that kind of essence. One thing though, I guess, is Venus and Leo, if out of whack, can definitely get into drama, like, almost overdo things or like need presentation. The biggest thing I like to share with Leo energy is finding self-love of the heart in the sun, which Leo like rules, versus needing to get external validation for Leo.
Good
Is where
point.
you're hitting a really strong positive energy for Leo, that it's more about this self-love that's permeating like the sun, versus I'm like needing everyone's attention to feel validated. I really just want to like open the spiritual offering for you to find that. But definitely this person needs they need to be fanned. Like, they need a
Yeah.
little bit. They definitely want someone to look good on the red carpet of life a little bit, and then they really, fire Venus might also idolize their partner too. It's very king queen stuff. But if man or woman, Venus and Leo, they want to feel like, they want to feel like they're the royal, they're the shit.
That's
if
funny.
they don't feel like you're really there to be that for them, um, it's not really going to speak their language.
Yeah, that was so well said. And I guess I just wanted to wrap up just by adding kind of just how I think amazing Venus and Leo can be, like in terms of showing up for their partner. At least I've seen this a lot with just Leo placements in general. It's like when they're in, like they go all in,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like they will do whatever for you. They're also kind of a ride or die, which I love. I really do love. But then, like you said, they require
I
certain
give
things.
a lot, but I need a lot.
Yes, exactly. They require certain things to get to that point. But that was so beautifully said. I really, really enjoyed that.
I
Thanks.
dated one for 3 years, so I got to learn a little bit.
Let's talk about Venus and Virgo. And actually, my ex had a Venus in Virgo. His Venus was right on my ascendant. So we got along so well. It was like we were just two bros, which is kind of weird. But yeah, we're just like really got along so well. And I don't know, Venus and Virgo is interesting. I know that people can say like Venus and Virgo can be quite critical in love and relationships, but I never found that to be the case with my ex. I found him to be really accepting of me and whatever I was doing. I think his critical eye maybe came out more in certain circumstances with like his work or with other things. And so I did want to say that they have I mean, he was a Virgo and had Venus in Virgo. So he definitely like had an eye for what was working, what wasn't working, like all the details of everything like that. But I don't necessarily think that he brought that into our relationship. So just for you guys who have Venus and Virgo, if you hear everyone out there saying like, oh, they're super critical, they complain a lot. They do complain a lot. That is definitely true. But I personally didn't find that it was like directed at me. So yeah, that's something that I did want to say.
Right. If I may.
Go for it.
So one thing I want to say, and I want to say this with a kind of discretion, is that Venus is considered in a fall position in Virgo, actually, because its exalted form would be in Pisces. But I want to recognize something. There's the good and bad news with this situation. We go bad news first because I'm going to let you get it off the chest. Is Venus in Virgo sometimes looks at relationships and is seeking the ideal of perfection and is always maybe getting anxiety when things aren't in alignment with that. So it's really good to keep track of one's like mental processes on this, because sometimes you're getting overwhelmed with all the little data features within relationships or for your own personal like finances and things that are working and not working in your life. So this is where Venus, you need to like take a deep breath, if you will. The beauty of Venus in Virgo that I really want people to understand is you make things tangible and real. You really show up in service. I've had some really, and another thing, this also shows your physical beauty. Similar to the Leo from self-love, but with Virgo, it's actually to the functionality of how beautiful in your life is. And I've seen these people look gorgeous. And Venus and Virgo, though, is now like, what am I actually physically creating that can serve other people? So I do see acts of service as a huge thing. I do see like making money and kind of raising in a corporate ladder to know like, hey, we need to take care of each other. It comes up for Venus and Virgo. I've just had someone like I've seen Venus and Virgos hook it up like no other. Like I've seen someone like, I brought you this for your birthday. I barely even knew them. Like, like they got like, you can stay at my house. Here's the best pillows. Here's this, here's shampoo, here's toothpaste. Like I have everything at the amiss with you. The only thing is like, and that's when it's a really positive aspect. It's also just making sure that love works. You want to literally look at your life that, love can fit in a way that you can enjoy things together and share things together that are enriching one's life. There has to be a form of progression, and also that it's like feeling that life, like there's a little bit of a cohesive approach to things, like maybe our jobs mesh together or things in life, like we can kind of create things together. But if there's something way out of proportion, Venus and Virgo is like, hey, I need this to work in my life. I need to kind of cut it down, because like I want to be able to come to it as almost like a little bit of a like getting it to like have peace and flourishment with each other. So like, Venus and Virgo just needs to find, where can I feel grounded and safe with people that lets me build up my foundation. And I really think that's really important. I know a few males with Venus and Virgo, like, there's something about elegant handwriting, really soft words, really comforting, like really delicate kind of earthly soft tones that start kind of creating this like peaceful, whimsical area of Mercury, and that really kind of gives a quaint version when Venus and Virgo is allowing itself to really flourish. If you get caught in the ends where you're like being hypercritical and anxiety, this can affect even someone's digestion, because Virgo rules the digestion tract. I felt like worrying about money and worrying about these situations almost gives you like, I've heard just indigestion, or like over processing situations, just over analyzing. And so like take a step back from that, look at what's physically beautiful in your life, because these are how we can really target and tailor how we're really flourishing. And so when you get to feel flourishing or things are progressing or blooming, I literally can imagine Venus and Virgo, male or females, especially females, but getting almost like more enhanced beauty, like feel purified. So
Yeah, and it is. I mean, Virgo is associated with the Virgin, and I will say that there is this purity of heart that comes in with Venus and Virgo. So, like for example, Blake Lively has this placement, or my ex has this placement. And if you watch interviews of Blake Lively, or if you knew my ex, you would just like they would just I don't know. It's like they do have this like softness of spirit and this really giving heart, and it's all coming from a very pure place. Like, I just want to give this to someone. They don't even think about it. They just do it. You know, like Blake Lively, she's always like baking and doing stuff for her family. Even though she's a celebrity, she probably has no time, probably barely gets to sleep. She's still playing that role in her family. And my ex would always cook for me. He was pretty attentive in terms of like the way that he would show up to the relationship. And I always felt cared for, because one of my main love languages to receive is acts of service. And that's how he showed up best.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, you know, their desire for perfection, and doing things right also kind of permeates into the way that they show up in the relationship. And it's really beautiful to receive the benefits of that as a partner. But I will say that there is that degree of like criticalness and perfection that comes into things that they approach. And so I know that I just said I didn't really receive that from my partner, but that is something that they have internally. So it could be against themselves, against something that they create, against something at their work, or even sometimes a dynamic in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Ricky is saying about practicing gratitude and focusing on what's working is a super great antidote to maybe some of that harsher voice that can come in with Venus and Virgo. And that's essentially why Venus is in fall in Virgo.
Mm. Yeah, I thought that was great.
Let's move on to Venus and Libra.
Oh boy.
You guys, don't you just love Hillary Duff? Like, does anyone in the world not love Hillary Duff? If you are here listening, please write in the comments down below. Do you love Hillary Duff, or do you love her? Because she has Venus in Libra. And I feel like this is a great example of just somebody who is so beautiful with Venus in Libra. And someone who's so likable, someone who knows how to get along with people. I think Beyonce also has Venus in Libra, which is, what I said earlier. So again, these like super likable, super beautiful. I mean, these are obviously celebrities, so maybe not everyone is at that extreme. But Venus is so at home in Libra that they really receive a lot of the benefits of this placement.
I find Venus even more at home personally in Libra. Not that they aren't, but like the reason I say this because it's the ruler of the 7th house of relationships. So we're having Venus at full home in the relationship house. And I said this again earlier, as I always find it's like the female of the lead masculine, the feminine dancer, is very Venus and Libra kind of associated. But it's kind of funny, as you brought it up, I'm thinking to myself, is there a female with Venus and Libra that isn't loved? And like, you know, are there other aspects of, like, I'm like looking at that because it's usually such a charming, soft, kind of charismatic, and just the word charming just keeps like sparkling at me. Placement of just like, you know, and also wanting to come in union and understanding with people very much. So like Venus and Libra is definitely like, I've always met like more of a daintier type. Definitely for a woman, there's always kind of a wasp sometimes I've noticed when they walk. It's kind of interesting, but like it's definitely more about partnership and being able to come in a balance. You know, we say in balance, but honestly it's like willing to be of service. And when we say service in this way, kind of different than the Virgo element, but when I see Libra is like, I want us to work together or create dynamics or create things together. The one thing is though, is being able to like recognize that this person loves beauty, loves harmony. In fact, almost strives completely away from violence or anything that's a little bit visceral, you know, unless there's some Scorpio or Aries in the chart.
Right.
But almost Venus in Libra is almost kind of like, I almost joke this is a full fairy position. Like, you know, for females at least, like, you know, there's a daintiness, almost kind of like a wag when they walk kind of thing. And I just find it's a very softer, it was like singing, art, music, like things that they want to create in that. But it's also like just having someone that they want to connect with. It just makes a lot of friends too, for sure.
Yeah, definitely a really strong eye for the aesthetic. And they really want, like you said, cooperation, harmony. It's like the opposite of someone triggering or divisive. Kind of the opposite of a Scorpio.
Maybe even they might be even passive, you know. Sometimes I'm actually encouraging, maybe it's my Aries moon or something, but like to help Venus in Libra speak up for itself sometimes, because they'll be almost too wanting everything to be harmony.
That is what I was gonna say, is that the shadow side of this is putting themselves aside at times in order to create that harmony, or like not speaking up, saying their needs, or even keeping more superficial relationships because of the desire to keep things light, keep things fair, equal, fun. All of those things can start getting a little bit messy or a little bit blurry as you start to enter really deep relationships. So that is a potential. Also, Venus in Libra is so relationship oriented that it can be a little bit more dependency on the partner. It would depend on the rest of their chart, but that is a potential other shadow side, is like, I am so used to creating harmony and working with others that it's like, well, I don't want to work on my own, or I have come to rely on the group or rely on my partner to really help move me through certain situations in life. So super, super, super beautiful sign for Venus to be in. I would say also they're very romantic to the point where they might idealize their love, their relationship, and their partner. And I think that can be a great thing as long as it doesn't have so much Neptune energy where it's not based off of reality at all.
I could agree with that.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of just magnetic type of personality to these kinds of people. As long as they avoid those shadow aspects, I think that this is one of the best placements you can have.
There's definitely a love language to add to that, of like needing to feel beautiful or handsome, you know, for a man or woman. It's actually letting them, I said kind of, I won't even, this could be arguable with Venus and Leo of needing to be fanned, you know, that Venus and Libra also, like, you want to feel that support from your friends, and you might go to parties just to keep your friends, but you really don't want to go to the party, you know? And I'm not saying that's the full truth. Usually you do, but it's also making sure that you have someone that actually can take a little bit of the masculine role. And this doesn't go from sexual orientation, but just like how you correlate with situations. Cause this is definitely someone that wants to support, be by your side, take care of like anything together. But also, like, I really encourage this person to like assert themselves when they know it's not, they can't take things personally, like really look at them objectively and have a good judgment on what they deserve. Just want to say this right now. I'm having a great time. Courtney's amazing. You're amazing. Let's keep this going. I love it.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And don't forget to hop over to Ricardo's brand new YouTube channel and hit subscribe so you can see all of this awesome content coming your way.
Just relaunch YouTube, The Infinite Soul. Catch it in the link.
SOL.
SOL.
All right, let's talk about Venus in motherfucking Scorpio.
Boom. I actually like this Venus.
Yeah.
I not just because I'm dating a gorgeous, beautiful woman with this, but, but
not because I'm biased or anything.
No,
guys.
no, but I actually really like Venus in Scorpio, but we will also say that this is considered a detriment position for Venus, but of the opposite of Venus in Taurus. Much because Scorpio deals with these very intense transformations of life. And so Venus is going to go on a journey when it gets into the underworld in Scorpio. But I always look at Venus and Scorpio is that there's something to be revealed that's a great jewel. And my favorite thing about Venus and Scorpio is that they want to know the truth. They want the raw diamond. They don't want it cut. They want it ripped from the ground just as it is. And sometimes they find that is the best treasure and gift. I almost say, though, because Venus is in detriment here in Scorpio, it can become too possessive. Or there's some raunchy jokes about like sometimes Venus and Scorpio get so romantic and so merged that it doesn't look at actually what's around it at all sometimes. Like you got to be like, are you in a place full of drugs and toxicity for love, or are you in a good place? You know, sometimes you got to check yourself in that place. But Venus and Scorpio, I can't say this is a full truth, but it's very common that we'll find some area that they might go through some they've experienced trauma, from a relationship, or they're undergoing trauma or some psychological process within themselves or the relationships. This is part of the spiritual Scorpio principle to kind of rise above it and see beyond with that, where I feel Venus has a lot of opportunities to shine in this way.
Yeah, when I see Venus in Scorpio, whenever I see any placement in Scorpio, I do kind of feel like there can be some past lives where people have betrayed them, broken their trust, hurt them once they've let them in. And so Venus in Scorpio approaches this lifetime kind of armed and ready to protect themselves with their stinger,
Reserved.
with them being reserved, keeping things in until they feel like they can really, really trust someone. And then that begins the process of melding in and like the deep intimacy, intertwining with one's partner, because you've kind of gone through that rigorous process of checking out if you're okay or not. I think that, yeah, Venus and Scorpio is really interesting, the possessiveness of it. I have a friend who has this. He doesn't recognize any possessiveness in him. I don't know that I've necessarily seen that, but the way that I've seen it come up with him was more so like emotional manipulation. And Scorpio can be really good at this. And the problem is that sometimes we don't even know that we're doing this. Like when we have a Scorpio placement or even a strong Pluto placement, like the level of conscious awareness is not always there. So sometimes, somebody can say something because they know that they're going to make the other person feel a certain way based off of what they said, or think a certain way, or impact a situation based off of how they're presenting the information. So Scorpios are deeply aware of the psychological processes behind human beings. And so when they say something, they intrinsically, whether it's conscious or not, have some kind of awareness of how that will land, how that could impact their partner, especially after they get to know them. And so even if they're not the typical outward external ways of like being possessive and jealous and controlling that can sometimes happen when a Venus in Scorpio feels insecure and feels like they need to protect what's theirs. It can happen on really more subtle realms of, let me protect you and keep you in my realm through the words that I choose or through the way that I make you feel in this relationship, so that I know that you will be here at the end of the day and it will be secure. So it's like kind of approaching this ability to stay connected with one's partner through a more like toxic kind of way, through a more, and I shouldn't say toxic, but through like a less secure or an unhealthy way. And that's not always going to be the case. As with all of these placements, these are potentials, and you'll see people who kind of fall anywhere along the spectrum. You can have the super healthy Venus and Scorpio, and then maybe that same person will enter into a relationship with someone else who makes them feel super insecure, or who brings about something in them that actually makes them go to the lower vibration of Venus and Scorpio. So it's really important to know that this is something that can exist along the spectrum and can change within each of us depending on who we are with, because partners can bring out the best and the worst in us.
Totally.
Yeah.
So for Venus and Scorpio, I was talking about like, the sexual intimacy needs to be there, but it's also like, I would really recommend for both parties to really get involved with conscious communication styles, because Venus and Scorpio is really needing to test and understand where trust is and feel the beautiful femininity of where trust and that kind of inner emotional connective value. There's almost kind of this echo magnetics in the air. And once like Venus and Scorpio is being connected, it really wants to wrap its roots around. And similar to how Venus and Taurus is, there can be a possessiveness there. They definitely need to know you're committed. And more than committed, if been prone to jealousy or anything, it's really just because they need to know if they can trust you. There most likely had been a situation, if not past life or current life, however so, but usually Venus and Scorpio had once attracted a circumstance that they did, that almost felt traumatizing, that they were not in a field of like full transparency or trust. So I really think having a conscious communication awareness or knowledge is really good, because patience is needed with this placement. dedication and emotional intelligence is very much needed with this placement. Otherwise, this is where fights come back with fire meets fire over and over. That just becomes a toxic umbrella where both people might have to leave, clear, and come back. And if there is a toxic attachment style, this is where Venus and Scorpio can't let go or needs to move on and really needs to like have something blow up in its face for it to actually be in the catalyst of transformation. But in one of the highest evolutionary forms, I see this Venus is having huge amounts of psychological transformation, huge amounts of like really seeing the truth and the depth within people. And it's much more of a quieter, reserved kind of energy. It's definitely a water sign. So I think of it almost like the water in the caves. I want to know if it's the purest. I want to know if it's the truest. I want to know the realms of where it can be and if it's committed to me. And then like, this is definitely not, if we were speaking in realms of like Venus and Gemini, this is much more of a monogamous standpoint in my personal opinion, because like Venus and Scorpio wants to kind of have this Kundalini merging a little bit. It wants to have this kind of merging with souls and understanding and cultivating it for a long time. So
there is an all-encompassing aspect of Venus and Scorpio, and I think it comes from the extremism that Scorpio tends to go into. So it's like when Scorpio loves something, they don't just dabble in it. That's like a Gemini. Like I'm a Gemini, my brother's a Scorpio. Wow, are we so different? Like I'm like, I love this, I love that, I love this. But it just gets obsessed about something and then becomes incredibly masterful at it because he goes 110% all in every aspect of his life, like so extreme. And that can translate into relationships with Venus and Scorpio. Like I need your blood for this ritual, like we are mated for life, like this kind of like, I mean, it doesn't have to be like that, but just kind of this intensity of, if I'm going to commit, like I'm going to do this right. And I think that's what Venus and Taurus and Venus and Scorpio share, since they are opposing signs. There are similarities. And I think that level of commitment and wanting to go all in and work at something and really contribute to something is definitely true to Venus and Scorpio.
One last little note on that is like, I've read it in a few astrology books. They put like, when you get really deep, like blood brothers kind of situation for Venus and Scorpio. I don't think like that, but I want to say this. I will say that Venus and Scorpio, the Scorpio element might pop up because it wants to test your trust. It wants to poke you and see if you stay or leave. And then Scorpio sees its value by like, oh, that took that. It's almost like a steel sword, and like checking in, I was like, and it gave you one little moment and you ran off. Oh, really wasn't that committed. So in that sense, it's really having a little bit of kind of some emotional awareness, because like when this person's showing up, they're really true. In my opinion, I can't speak for all people, and everything in the chart needs to be considered and looked at. Always. But Venus and Scorpio really wants to merge with what is pure and what is it, and it will go through all the dark realms to go through that, and it kind of wants you to understand that too. So if you're not being able to handle certain elements of like diving deep or understanding one psychological process, or really getting a hidden, uncovered person or part of this person's soul, it's going to be difficult to find that connection. But then all the forms of commitment and kind revelation and merging is all there. So like I like this placement. It just is it's a bigger journey.
Beautiful. So let's move on to Venus and Sagittarius. I have a number of best friends who have this, so very well acquainted with my Venus and Sag.
Yours truly.
Oh, you have that too.
I'm
oh
Venus
my
and
God.
Sag.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you take it away then.
Really?
Yeah. So
well,
you can start off.
So Venus and Sag, we're in the final fire Venus. We're in the home of Jupiter with Venus and Sag. And if I had to say this, Venus and Sag has all the optimism of wanting life to be a party. And we definitely feel like everything's a party. And we want everything to feel like exciting and expansive. But here's one thing that people don't recognize about Venus and Sag is we love education. We love like knowledge. And especially, and this is deep cuts, but like Venus and Sag wants to know that there's something that we can expand into the journey. And I always think of it like, cliche, the horse, but like we can really run off into life and be free to do as we will. So like Venus and Sag wants to feel freedom, but also this kind of expansiveness to grow and open up the doors, what is possible, And with a lover, I kind of get the whole kind of magic carpet ride thing. Like we're very Sagittarian, very like ultra idealism to like cascade with the greatest love of them all. And sometimes Venus and Sag might go through a journey. We're also prone to giving too many gold tickets and too many chances because we're mutable. We believe in the catalyst for change and transformation too, to make a change within some place. And we've probably at one point or another been too optimistic or given too many gold tickets to individuals that weren't on the path that we were on, and sometimes got, oh no, they're starting a new book club and they're all changing their life. They're getting all this stuff together. And Venus and Sag might be like, and they're like, no, it's not really changing. It's the same thing. We're really optimistic. We love you for that. But like, also like, you're going to have to get off the drugs and alcohol and wake up to life one day or another. So
Yeah.
this is the realm of potentially a lower vibration Venus and Sag. Higher vibrations though is like someone that's really seeking education and kind of like a thrill to expand. And this is why it feels like life is a party, because like we want to feel that partnership, or we want to connect with this kind of like journey of doing so many activities. It's almost like Jupiter wants to have almost a dazzling adventure, with love. And so it's within or with others. So
Yeah, and like I said, I have friends with this, and they have very different charts from each other. And they both have a very magnetic kind of personality. If they want to be, they can be the life of the party, or people just naturally kind of gravitate towards them, or they will talk easily to people. They have, even if they have introverted parts of their chart and personality, they can turn on this extroverted aspect of themselves. I will say one of the things that, even though those people are so different, the thing that they have in common is their desire for growth. And that's kind of what you're saying about education or like experience in life. Mm-hmm. And so what I notice with Venus and Sag individuals is that while they may give many second chances and like to be optimistic about their partnerships and what it can do for them, I do see this point in time where they have reality kind of hit them in the face, and they like have this realization that I'm not growing to my fullest potential, and this partnership is actually part of an old version of myself, or this partnership is actually holding me back in some kind of way. And so I notice this really interesting point where they feel like a constriction around the relationship, and there is a primal desire for Venus and Sagittarius to have freedom within the relationship. Not only personal freedom, like I get to explore, I get to do me, I get to pursue the things that I love and care about in my career, whatever that is, but also freedom in terms of I'm continuing to evolve, I'm continuing to grow. Like I have this spaciousness, not this kind of container that there's a limit to, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like my Venus and Sag friends are extremely bold. They're adventurous. They usually like to travel. They like to do lots of new things. And so if they have a partner that's like a wet blanket, or is maybe a part of an old version of themselves, that person is not going to carry on for very long. Like there is definitely going to be a set time limit, because they need that partner to kind of run alongside them, or at least give them the space. And I think a good example of this is a really close friend of mine who, her partner, I can't remember where his Venus is. I think it's in Cancer, and hers is in Sagittarius. And so he wants to ground down, and he wants to make a home, and he wants to find tradition and security in a certain environment. She has her Venus in Sag, and she has Uranus conjunct her sun. So when I say that this girl wants change,
she's a radical person.
She embodies this essence of change and growth and movement. And so she's constantly wanting to move, constantly wanting to travel, study and do new things. And so her partner and her just made a deal like, okay, you need to travel, and I have this other need that's opposite that. I'm going to stay here while you go travel and you come back to me. And I think that's so important, is like understanding your needs, your way of approaching relationships, so that you can basically give your partner what they need, because that's a core aspect of who they are. Like, she's not just going to change and suddenly not be an adventurous person or not need to grow and try new
Oh,
things.
hell no. There'll be 101 still partying. I have a next door neighbor, not to cut you off. I
Still
apologize.
partying?
I have 100-year-old neighbor that hangs out with my family, and she still brings over margaritas to come and party, Venus and Sag. Please continue, but I
No,
just had to insert that one.
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it never ends. I feel like there's a zest for life that's so beautiful about Venus and Sag. Even when they are in their dark days, I feel like they have this silver lining and this light that they're looking for. And I don't know, they just need somebody who can expound upon that and who doesn't drag them down and doesn't limit them. And I think that's one of the biggest things with Venus and Sag.
I fully agree with you. I really appreciate you even saying that, because it's like Venus and Sag, it's funny because we're mutable, and I just said that, but like if a Venus and Sag is really in love with you, they were telling you like a little dog every little detail about our life. Like, oh my God, I did this, and I saw a squirrel, and I picked up this today, and I colored it in between the line, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're telling everything because we feel like life can be that like jovial. But if we're like a horse in the stable without the ability to go run free, just to go on a little adventure and come back, Venus and Sag is willing to be committed, but we need to like feel like we're free to run and go free. And I will say this personally, and this is my personal chart with this, but like I have Venus in the 4th house of Cancer. So the funny thing is, I love to come back to the stable, if you had to use that analogy, but like I definitely love this like inner journey, being with myself, expanding in my own world, that lets me come back and enjoy kind of a more home life area.
Your hair kind of looks like a mane. Should we show the audience? That is so Leo rising, by the way. Like you and Landon with your manes. Okay.
The manes.
Yeah. He's a horse running around and coming back to the stable.
I mean that's a cute analogy, but it's also like if you tell a Venus and Sag that they can't go out and play and they accept that, they're gonna feel like this candle kind of like not being able to express, and that's really heavy upon a Jupiter ruled placement, because like we're cantankerous. Like we want to go crazy and live life, and we want to run that with somebody. So it's definitely be able to like encourage and also be a realist with us too, I think is something that helps Venus and Sag, because I know I can get extra Jupiterian ideas and I try to like bring it back to reality checks, but it's also should never kind of bog this person down or like set them to be controlled or not express themselves for how they might want to be. So
I think we should also maybe talk about belief systems with Venus and Sag.
Okay.
Because I will say that Sagittarius being associated with having like a certain way things are done or a certain belief about how things operate. I think while they are mutable, there is this level of like stubbornness that I see come in with Sagittarius around beliefs.
We can be, what happens and this is the lowest form of Sagittarius, is we want to ascend into the highest ideals, and we'll take a journey to find what those ideals are. The issue that can arise is that we become almost judgmental to things that aren't in alignment with that ideal.
Yes.
So it's like, this is the way. We've already checked it, and this is the way. And then Gemini, ironically, is the one to question, like, there's the other perspectives,
There's 6 other ways.
And so, like, and that helps Sagittarius go back to the drawing board once in a while to, like, reconsider there's still more to expand and know.
Yeah. So I think that with Venus and Sag, in order to not have this become an issue, the couple or whatever kind of relationship it is, they really need to make sure that they have a very similar kind of way of viewing the world, at least on the things that Sagittarius feels passionate about. Because you don't want to have two people who have completely different belief systems, completely different ways of viewing life, and then you try to get them to cooperate. Like, that's just really not going to work out as well with this placement.
I hear that. Yeah.
Can you move the mic closer to your face?
Yes, we can. We absolutely can.
There we go.
The problem is, like, if you haven't noticed, sometimes I like breathe. Me and Courtney were going back and forth, and I was like, but yeah.
Yeah,
Take
Ricky
a,
said he broke his nose before. So
yeah, I breathe heavy. It's part of the horse archetype
I
still.
was literally just thinking about that. I was like, you are a horse, so you
Oh
just have
my
to
gosh.
neigh. Oh my god.
I
Okay.
think for Venus and Sag, though, I think that's really well. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know
hmm
that? What's that movie? Is it Spirit? Where it's like that horse?
The
Yeah.
Mustangs. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That just reminds me of like Spirit, and I don't know. I love that
You
archetype for
can't
Venus.
break a Venus and Sag, especially a female. They're going to break the chains and get out, you know? And I don't say that. I just say, like, they need to feel free to learn and expand and grow, you know? And if this is a child, you wouldn't never want to, like, put them in a box. This is the first recipe for creating resentment and pushing them away and not having them come back happy. You know, but when we're being operated to expand and grow with you, I would say, like, you know, it's really just having a journey in the adventure with somebody, expanding and touching the world with somebody. Yeah.
All right. Up next, we have Venus in Capricorn, and I'm blanking on her name. What is
It's
this
going on
person's
right
name
now,
again?
too. I have no clue who
Come
that woman is
on.
that you're showing me.
Oh, come on.
Let me see a
Oh,
little.
Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, Scarlett Johansson. But that
Okay.
picture, it was a little. Okay, I see it now. For whatever.
I wanted to choose one
We
that
could
looks
pick a better
Venus in
picture. I
Capricorn.
can see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? This is such a
She's
Venus
sharp.
and Cap kind
She's
of gal.
executive.
She's executive. So yeah, that's a great word. I literally wrote in my notes, like, they know how to get down to business in love. Yeah. There is some kind of quality of like, well, are you marriage material? Do you have money? Where are you going in life? What's
Especially
your
females.
plan? Yeah, especially women. They're going to be looking for a really stable partner, someone that they can grow a life with. And so their basis is going to be definitely kind of future oriented, practical. And yeah, it's like it takes a little bit of like the fire and the pizzazz that like Sagittarius and Leo and Aries have for their love life. It takes it out a little bit and it brings it
We're in
more down to like
Rudiments,
like
structures.
yeah, like
We're in
we're
Saturn's
gonna build a
home.
family. We're gonna have something really foundational
Right.
and strong together, and that's what matters. Like I don't need to wake up and feel passion every day. I need to know that we can support each other. I need to know that this makes sense. I need to know where we're going as a couple. It's like it's got a lot of that kind of practical down to earth mentality to it.
Totally. I will say, though, that I've noticed Venus in Capricorn, though, is much more jovial than one might put, you know, on the books for astrology. And it might depend on certain aspects with people. But, like, it, you know, is there as an executive position with this? Absolutely. Females with Venus and Capricorn, you should not be dishonoring yourself by hanging around with people bumming. And I'm just going to say that because, like, this is a position that wants to grow and provide and have a foundation. I always joked, like, Venus and Capricorn, my mom's like this, hey, maybe we didn't give you all the fire little elements, but we made sure you had good shoes. We made sure you had like clothes, that you had food on the table, that we had electricity on. Like, you know,
Yeah.
Venus and Capricorn will put its foot forward to make sure that you are supported properly. And at least, like, you know, that you know, you can buy your school books or something like that. And I know this doesn't sound as like as maybe the most romantic position, but they're
It's not
always
as sexy, but it's the long term is
depending on
sexy.
who you're talking to, though. I just gotta say that right
Well,
now.
I mean, when you compare it to like a super fiery sign, it doesn't have the same kind of
just a different flavor.
yeah.
There's a different flavor, but I will say that I've seen Venus and Capricorn. Sometimes I literally look in like Mama Gaia energy. Sometimes on like I've created enough fruits to share. There's something where Venus and Capricorn shares either food or resources, and it always is like in a beautiful, presentable kind of fashion. So I really have experienced that with several Venus and Capricorns. Like, you know, it's more of a precious, delightful smell in the roses kind of vibe, depending on the individual. But yes, it's more than the traditional sense. It's much more practical terms. It's a little bit more
Right.
executive and cut clean.
And it's not to
Very-
say that like Capricorns are not fun. Like I know I have a Capricorn
They're crazy
moon.
fun.
I think that they're fun. They're also really like funny, surprisingly funny. And I don't know. I just think that they are really solid people. And I think that's the thing, is like they are looking for other solid people. And there's some kind of fleeting quality to the fire that if they're not stimulated enough, that they move on. And that's again a generalization. You have to look at their chart. There's so many other things. But there's just that quality to fire that has that kind of like burst of energy and sexiness and all that, but it's fleeting. And then this Capricorn energy is all about the longevity. And so there is something really beautiful to that. It's not just how can I find love, but how can I find love that lasts, love that's true, love that's meaningful, someone I can truly trust and lean on, that we can build a real partnership together. And I think that also it'll be important for these people to look for partners who, like you said, are going somewhere, like somebody who has maybe some kind of vision for their life or something that they're working towards. Like they don't have to be the next Bill Gates, but just wanting to make something out of themselves. Because one of the core attractive features for Venus and Capricorn is someone with purpose, someone with drive, someone who has intention when they wake up every day to go out and affect the world in a positive way. And so it's not this kind of like, I'm just going to follow whatever passion. It's like, I really want to be super intentional with everything I'm doing and everything I'm investing in for the long term. And so that's why I feel like Venus and Capricorn, even though it's not as like fiery as the fire itself, being in an earth sign, that's what I love, because I have predominantly earth. So I'm like, that speaks my love language. Just someone who is really stable and there for you, I think is a really beautiful thing to have.
I really look at Venus and Capricorn as, you know, they get brought with some situation that brings them responsibility. And, you know, it's like responsibility is not necessarily sometimes the funnest thing, but that's where we're like taking care of those elements to really put that forward. And there's so much love that's there, you know. And when I think of Venus and Capricorn, and it's funny, this has happened in many ways. When Venus was retrograde in Capricorn, we're here in Venus Capricorn as we make this video, but they'll be there in the hospital for you. They'll be there to support you when you're really in a rut. They're really there to show up and see like who's dedicated to like really be a friend for life and like help me get where I need to get and work together to build something. As where Venus and Capricorn's like, all right, let's do this, you know? And Saturn, its ruling position, ruling planet for the sign, is giving Venus the support to go create it when you have a great foundation to really build upon it. And so like if we don't have this kind of foundation, and I've noticed like men and women can experience this very differently, but like when there's a moment of responsibility, Venus and Capricorn, especially I've seen females, they show up hard, and they really want like, hey, if you're bumming around, and I'm using that term loosely, but truly, if there's not something that we're striving to co-create or be on the same track of life, this Venus will not feel good, not feel comfortable. And when it does, it actually feels very fruitful, in my opinion. I like to look at Capricorn has built enough fruit to take care of more than itself, even the whole neighborhood situation. Very a Queen of Pentacles situation.
Yeah, very Queen of Pentacles. Yeah. The last thing I'll add with that is that every time I think we talk about Capricorn, I do want to talk about the fact that it's not just the goat, but the sea goat. So there is always something very intuitive about Capricorn that I think that they don't get enough credit for, actually.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I really would.
I see a lot of Capricorns. I mean, maybe it's because I have a Capricorn moon, but I see a lot of Capricorns in my field, or in the woo field, I should say, a spiritual field. And they are extremely like psychic, or like just really tapped into something. And they do work that's truly meaningful to them. They're like, I incarnated with this mission to help people. And so there is something
high
that I feel
Capricorn.
like, high key. But I feel like there is kind of an association between that and relationships then when you have this in your chart. Like maybe your relationship is partially here to help you achieve some kind of spiritual mission. Maybe you can intuitively feel when someone should or shouldn't be in your life, like they're going to be a distraction or they're going to help you move forward in your mission. Whatever that is, it doesn't have to be always career oriented, but it's going to impact the world in some kind of way. And so I just wanted to kind of give you that other understanding of Capricorn, which people don't talk about enough.
I would agree with that. The mystical sea goat, where we get all these glyphs is all ancient stuff, but it really is like I look at the hippocampus, this kind of Greek water goat, comes out of the water.
Is it hippocampus, like the part of your brain?
It is, yes, but it is a hippocampus. It's some Greek
Hippocrates or something?
No, it's a Greek mythological horse with a tail. It's a mermaid horse, and it's from Greek mythology, and it's very closely syllabled. So forgive me if I mispronounce that.
The hippocampus,
but it's like Poseidon's steeds, if you will. So the mystical sea goat, like it's raising out of the water from roots. Sometimes Capricorns come from interesting roots of where they begun, and then risen up to reach the mountains, and they can climb anything. And so this element of the climbing element, this element of growth and flourishing and feeling like things are really coming together and growing, is where the femininity is like, like getting that moment, and that everything's like growing and getting better. So like these people are really equipped for business support, and even just financially supporting elements of life. I just think it's somewhere like I would love a Venus and Capricorn to be there for me in my hardest times, or at any moment.
Pay for my shit. I'm just kidding.
Or taking care of people around them that really need it and appreciate it deeply. So
awesome. All right. Oh, now we have my Venus and Aquarius individuals. One of my best friends has this placement. Very interesting one, because Venus is all about connection and feeling included. And I will say that Aquarius has this kind of chip on its shoulder in general in their lives, where at some point they feel like they're excluded, or they're different, or they're the outsider. And so Venus and Aquarius definitely has to have a unique kind of relationship.
Oh, yeah.
In order to feel like they are understood. They really need to be with somebody who's non-judgmental, open-minded, somebody who gets them, because there are going to be points in their life where they encounter people that don't get them. And so they really need to find some kind of romantic partnership with the right person, and maybe doing it in their own unique, right type of way, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah. I've known a few Venus and Aquariuses. Definitely the aspect of there's definitely another knowledge group of people, like definitely needing to learn and dive into a certain world, and it might be a very niche thing. They get into niches, like, but it's like their world in all its essence. When I really, there was a Venus in Aquarius, and I learned a lot about Venus and Aquarius. It was one of the Venuses I knew the least of as of a few years ago. And if I learned anything, Venus and Aquarius does not want your cliche lover in life. They want the more weird, diverse, unique person that's intriguing, or they don't give an F. Like, I've never seen Venus and Aquarius go for like the traditional person that works at a bank. Not criticizing anyone if you work at a bank, but my point is that like they almost want the kind of like paleontologist, astrologer, different like that also makes like traditional herbs for robots. I'm making it up. Like that doesn't make any sense, but like that makes no sense whatsoever. But my point is, it's like the more intrinsic and different and almost weird, and I don't want to use the word weird, but like the more unique, it says something that can almost connect with. It's almost like more intriguing and fascinating for them to be like pulled into and have some form of connection with. Like,
well, my partner has Venus in Aquarius, so you just call me weird, Ricky. I'm just kidding.
You're a little. I'm just kidding.
Definitely
we're
on the
astrologers.
fringe.
We're fucking weird.
Yeah,
Excuse
we're
me,
literally sitting on a couch in my garage recording shit about astrology.
and we're having a blast.
We're having so much fun, and we don't care if people judge us.
But it's and also we can get in the nitty gritties. They say Aquarius rules the sky and connection to all things. So sometimes they say Aquarius could be the ruler of astrology in ways too.
Yeah, Uranus, definitely.
So
I don't know. That makes a lot of sense because I have Uranus on my moon, and I love astrology. But yeah, I definitely think that either the person or the circumstance or both has to be somewhat non-traditional or unconventional
For sure.
in order for it to fit. Because Aquarius, it's like they are like the 3/4 sizes. Like they have, you know, like they don't fit into the traditional sizes of like the world around them. And so they have to find their own way to navigate this. And the most important thing for these people is to feel really unstifled. Like they need somebody who just lets them do them and just completely accepts them, doesn't judge them. Like I know I already said that, but it's just so, I see this so much. It's like I just love this person because I can just be a weirdo and just talk about this thing. And maybe that person doesn't even like that thing that they're talking about. Like maybe their partner doesn't even care. But just the fact that they're listening and the fact that they're like a neutral source, at least, like that is enough, you know, in a lot of ways for them. Although obviously it's even better when you like the same thing. Sometimes you're not going to, because Venus and Aquarius does have these little like niche interests. And you know, my partner, as well as one of my best friends, they have these niches that I know that not a lot of people are involved in. And so, you know, it's not about finding the exact person that matches you. It's about finding the person that lets you flow and do you. And so that's just one of the biggest things here. As well as mental stimulation with your partner, really
Totally.
feeling like they can talk with you, even if they don't know everything that you're talking about, even if they don't have the exact same interests as you. Can you at least like talk about it? Can you at least talk about things in the world?
Discover, experiment with the idea, see what's even there. What are the shades I can connect with that or not? Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say sometimes there can be, I mean, people say like there's like a distance or an emotional detachment that can come with Aquarius. How would you describe this? Because I do agree with this.
I got a lot to say with that.
Yeah.
Like, so two things. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. This is so Venus and Aquarius. And I always think of Aquarius as like lightning. I don't know. I always get that
Uranus
detail.
rules electricity, so
Right.
that's why.
Right. So, excuse me. Like I find that like Aquarius, Venus and Aquarius definitely wants to connect with something of intellectual essences. And if you're not feeling this feeling that I can connect with someone, even when it's diverse and unique, I feel a little isolated or out of whack. So I really encourage Venus and Aquarius to be a little weird sometimes, you know, like let themselves because once you let yourself kind of just be whatever, everything's valid. And that lets people accept you and let your femininity be connected with connected with basically is the goal. The thing is though, they look at sometimes that Leo is wanting to connect and Aquarius is disconnecting. There is a gift that Aquarius lets us do, and this will probably happen with most Venus and Aquariuses, or at least Aquarius in general, is we kind of like step back and try to put all the puzzle pieces together on how we merge into someone's world before we jump into the relationship or whatever have you. It varies for person to person. But I would say that Aquarius's gift is with Venus and Aquarius is to like unplug, go up in the stratosphere for a little bit and check into like where it is when they're ready to connect and plug in. The only situation though is I really advise Venus and Aquarius to there's nothing more upsetting where Venus and Aquarius or Aquarius just in general unplugs, goes up in their spaceship and never comes down because they feel like they're never going to be included with.
Dude, I so resonate with like my friends who have this placement. They can go into the ether, man. Like
They're gone.
They are even though this person who has this is Capricorn, super grounded, she also has this ability to go into the ether, connect to spirit, like extremely in tune. And she often says, I feel like I'm not from this planet. Like I feel like it's, you know, humans are difficult. Like I love them. They're also like the source of my pain, to put that in other words. But I just think that there is that level of detaching. I guess I can see what you mean by that. Like detaching that way, like going literally like kind of detaching almost like a soul and going up into space,
Right.
hovering around. That makes so much sense to me when you put it like that. I love that analogy.
It is definitely like when we start getting Aquarius, we're talking about the mind and like the air element that's ruling like in the stratosphere with electricity. Sometimes like dolphin calls are looked at to be a frequency that's kind of this Aquarian telepathy and communication beyond language and stuff. So I will say that sometimes Aquarius with different aspects can almost get but almost into the metaphysical, because it's getting hyper conscious. It almost feels this buzz in the air. And that sounds funny, but my mom's an Aquarius, and we've had light bulbs explode
Wow.
multiple times. Like, so, and make your own assumption on that however you will, watching
His
them.
house is haunted.
It's totally haunted. No, like, but it is funny because my mom has a hunch. She's like, you know, and she's Venus and Capricorn. But like, to bring it back, is Venus and Aquarius, like, we really, it allows us to recognize that everyone feels diverse and connected with. So my invitation to Venus and Aquarius, because they need to kind of start first, is let themselves accept their unique and weirdness, because then it allows everyone to fall in love with you and everybody else in between. We're all in unity on this one. It's just when they disconnect, it's letting you take a moment to like, hey, this is great. I've plugged into this, but I'm almost trying to unplug to like reevaluate what I find excitement with. Because I notice if there's anything Aquarius does, when it gets too locked into a certain routine, it gets bored and it kind of like messes stuff up. Like, it just wants to kind of disrupt the system a little bit. And I feel like when we have a healthy form of connection, Aquarius also just needs to be idolized too. It needs to be known as kind of the access with Leo. It wants to be seen for its uniqueness too. And that's a real big love language I want to share for one dating and one involved with one. So yeah, very fascinating placement. Yeah.
I also wanted to add that I find, and I'd be curious in the comments if you have Venus and Aquarius, if you can let me know if you resonate with this. But I find that Venus and Aquarius, while they're extremely in tune with the collective and they're almost like psychic in their ability to understand like how people are feeling or what's going on, like they can pick up on these kind of collective conscious energies and thoughts, and they might even be impacted by them. Even though they care deeply about, I feel like, society progressing in a positive way, caring for one another, this kind of humanitarian mindset, I find that they also are overwhelmed by group situations. Like, I tend to see them pulling themselves away, not wanting to go to a really big party. It's like they feel the energy really intensely or something. But I don't know.
Experienced this too.
Yeah, it seems like it overwhelms someone with the Venus and Aquarius. Like, I literally was having a group of friends over and I invited one of my friends with Venus and Aquarius, and she was like, yeah, I went to a party recently with all these people, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. So I was like, okay, I totally understand.
No, I've been romantically involved with one at one point. That's exactly the circumstance. They almost couldn't be in that placement. So like, you know, the full realms of trying to understand that are hard. But my biggest thing I would like to recommend to Venus and Aquarius, both the partner and or the person born with one, is really diving into neurology, like neuroscience or like psychology, to really find somatic ways to contain and control, because they are accessibly able to connect with any kind of weird frequency. Tony Robbins is born with Mars and Venus conjunct in Aquarius, and he knows how to connect with like any human.
Dude, I feel like they are literally a walking antenna.
They're
just
walking
like picking
antenna.
up everyone's frequencies. And it's not that they're like super emotionally attached to all their frequencies, but I think energetically there's only so much of that you can process. And I think that's probably why a lot of them will need some time alone, need some space. And I think that's a really big thing with Venus and Aquarius, is like giving them their freedom, their independence, and their space. Like, one of my friends who has this literally, like, you know, anyway, I'm not going to give her personal details, but she has a lot of space within the home in order for her to feel like she can stretch out, be herself, do her routine. And I think that, you know, everyone needs that to a certain extent when they have that kind of antenna.
Mm-hmm. You can do anything. You really can do anything. So I know it feels like the options can be overwhelming. The overload of stimuli can feel overwhelming. But sometimes I kind of let Aquarius ride the lightning a little bit, because Uranus wants to like ascend you to progression. And I know that our society is very rigid, very Capricorn society. I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but like, last detail is like, your way of being diverse and unique of all spectrum of a connectivity is so valid. Bring the
You,
sauce to the table.
yeah. I was gonna say something, but I realized we already said it. I was gonna say you might just have like kind of weird friends. Like, you might just attract like different types of people and subgenres or whatever. But yeah. Okay, let's move on to Venus and Pisces. Uh,
I
Definitely.
love it so much.
Yeah, I was just looking at someone's chart who has this, and one of the first things I wrote down was like, "You're probably a romantic at heart." You know, whenever I see this, I'm like, "This is someone with just high degrees of love, compassion, intuition, empathy, maybe a little bit of the rose-colored glasses that I see."
Very rose tinted goggles. Feeling every little synchronicity is a calling from God.
It's a sign.
It's a sign. And
It says 222, and this person called me at that time.
and yeah, and then it's 121, and that's my birth time. That makes me think of the word fish. And this person and me ate fish yesterday, and we're destined to be together. I'm playing around.
That's so rude, Ricky.
I'm teasing. No, I'm actually a humongous fan of Venus and Pisces.
Who wouldn't be? This is the exalted position.
It's an exalted Venus, and to me, I think of Disney.
Oh yeah.
I think of Disney, like it's like fairy tales and like dreams do come true, and like
the Little Mermaid.
I really see some of these moments where like God gets involved in a beautiful little way. Like now we leave Aquarius on the functional mind connected, and now like we literally get kind of the oasis of love and compassion on another level. I almost want to talk all about it, but to keep it straight for relationships, men and women, you know, it's definitely a very sensitive and very compassionate placement. Sometimes this person can let their partner potentially take advantage of them. If so, they're like fully receiving and fully compassionate to a situation. Very romantic, by the way, and almost can like idolize or like, and I won't lie, when Venus has been in Pisces in my life, the environment or the people or the circumstances, stories are unbelievable. Like some of them are like the flowers are blooming, and the things that happen, I couldn't even explain to you or let you you couldn't even believe me on like what the crystal in my pocket, open a conversation, followed them, found them randomly in the woods. And like I don't even know. And then like we had this conversation. I just dreamt this, and like boom, 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 boom. Like
synchronicity
it can
after synchronicity.
feel really beautiful and like vastness of the ocean. It's very sunset on the beach, kind of like surrealness.
Yeah, and I just picture someone also sitting on the beach in the sunset, serenading their partner, writing love poems, like just this kind of like sappy romantic type, and not sappy in like the negative sense, but just like literally it's oozing out of them, you know, like they have just so much love to give, and they have to have some kind of outlet or expression to share that with their partner in such a beautiful way. And I will say that part about often pairing up with people that take advantage of them, I think that this comes a lot from the savior archetype that Neptune, which is the modern ruler of Pisces, typically can represent, or sometimes can represent. So essentially what happens with these individuals is I actually have a client who has this, who was in a relationship with someone who was abusing drugs and alcohol, and, you know, just trying to make it work with them, always being there, supporting them. And that's like the typical Venus and Pisces person. Like, I'm going to see the best in you. I'm going to make things better for you. We can do this together. We can fix you. Like, we got this. And at the end of the day, like that person is struggling, and they're not ready to be fixed, or they're not willing to put in the same work as you. And so you're there trying to save someone or lift someone up to a degree that they're not willing to do for themselves. And so that is where I think a lot of that being taken advantage of can come from. Or even just, I don't know, with the rose-colored glasses, like being with someone who is actually a liar, or who maybe isn't as 100% as invested as you are. There's a number of ways that can come up. It doesn't just have to be those, but just in general, being so compassionate, so loving, always wanting to give to the underdog, being charitable, always trying to see the best in people. Sometimes that attracts the shadow people that hold the traits that are opposite that. So definitely something to keep in mind.
But when we to kind of clarify something here, though, I know of many Venus and Pisces actually, and y'all are charming. I almost joke y'all are like little baby Pokemon or something because you're like so precious about things, like men or women. I don't know
Like
how.
Romeo or Juliet?
Huh?
Like Romeo and Juliet?
Well, I'm actually like cute. Like just
Okay.
cute. Like
Cute.
I'm talking about baby Pokemon, like
Okay.
Pikachu, like, oh my God, I love you. Like, like that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Sometimes that comes off. But I've seen but all that joking around, I've seen Venus and Pisces is almost like you're not really being realistic about the situation. That's I'm giving bad news first and clean up with the good news. And so let yourself be realistic about something that's showing up for you, because sometimes like maybe it's the way someone entered the room. Maybe it's the way y'all both like touched hands at a moment. Maybe it was like, some area that really came off really romantic, and please hold that magic. I would never, I do not ruin the book by breaking Venus and Pisces out of its romantic stage, but really do not get caught in a spell either that you're in this place with someone that really doesn't have money, that really isn't taking care of you, that really isn't in your best interest, and it's just not literally gonna work, and that's not to be mean of any kind, because even hearing that, I can imagine a Venus at Pisces at home feeling that hard. But I'm letting you know because I don't want anything to taint the kind of magic that's really with the situation. I know someone that literally left Texas, went on a plane, moved in with some lover they knew for a little bit, and they literally went bankrupt, used all their money to stay here, stayed in the airport, went back, and was almost like so scared to ever leave their house again because they were just so entropic with the relationship. So this is where Neptune could be like a little malefic in this situation. But I can say that you're opening up to something in consciousness where I've seen like love in magic is very real. And I will say this, like my own personal experiences with Venus and Pisces as a transit are some of the most unbelievable things I've experienced potentially. And so like, let a little bit of that fantasy walk in. Some of these people though, like Venus and Pisces can almost let you leave the human realm. Like this, like I'm not trying to get ultra weird with people here, but sometimes they might almost want to live in a mystical realm. Like this is where fantasy movies come involved, and like way beyond the outstretches of just imagination that just wants to run free.
Right. Very, very creative. So probably really common in people who
Almost
are
mythical.
singers, songwriters, writers in general, actors. Like Heath Ledger had this Venus and Pisces. I definitely think you can see that charmingness in him. You can see obviously the really great like imaginative acting that he had, but then you can also see the downfall of Pisces with like, drug abuse, things like that. I mean, we're not going to get into that because that's not really relationships, but it's possible to attract partners like that. Essentially, with Venus and Pisces, is like people who avoid certain realities, or you avoiding certain realities. Like that's really
Right.
common within the relationship dynamic. So, just as much as you can ground down, that's the best thing for you, and you'll find that you have the greatest capacity of love out of most of the signs. So
You will not do it for the money. You will not do it for the money. You'll do it to love that soul in the infiniteness that it is. It is that beautiful.
it's just so genuine, so pure. So yeah, that's all I had to say about Venus and Pisces. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
I mean, I feel like I'll spin in circles talking about it, but I think we're good. Please leave a comment or suggestion you want to hear more about any of these Venuses, but it was definitely a thrill to talk about all of them. There's definitely probably more details we could go into, but for the meat and potatoes, I think it was pretty
And if
good.
you have, I mean, everyone has a Venus in a sign. So comment down below what Venus sign you have and how it plays out in your life, because I would absolutely love to hear. If you have any questions, also comment those down below because we will start answering them on the podcast. I might even make a little like survey thing where you can pop in your questions so we can go live and answer some of them, especially around relationships, which is what we're kind of trying to focus on more or
Totally.
less. And yeah, I think we gave examples throughout, so we're not going to end with any examples. I feel like those are scattered in. And definitely be sure to follow Ricky Bobby's new YouTube channel, which again is Infinite Soul.
The Infinite Soul, and Soul's SOL.
Beautiful. And if you haven't already subscribed, make sure that you do so. And I hope that you guys have a beautiful day. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, Courtney.